Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Med List. I'm Kevin, and this is Donna. And Donna, what's been going on in your world today?
Oh, so much great things. Starting to plan a wedding for my son, so that's always exciting.
Yes.
And starting to get things in place, so super exciting. And just again, sharing more wonderful time with family. How about you?
What's the collaboration like between bride and mother-in-law on wedding planning?
Amazing. I've known my future daughter-in-law for a number of years at this point, so we're just excited to have her part of the family. So yeah,
Oh,
no muss, no fuss.
yeah, that's so helpful. That's so nice. I know that sometimes we can have bridezillas that happen out there, and we can have patient bridezillas that happen every once in a while too, Donna. You know that we have to have it certain ways and get them kind of locked in a certain way. For me, locked in a certain way today, I feel like I've been a little bit of everywhere. One place though that was kind of near and dear. I saw a video just the other day. It was a TED Talk, Donna.
Mm-hmm.
It was about basically understanding the needs of your community and understanding what people are going through, like in
Mm-hmm.
individual communities, and how sometimes things that we can think of as being so simple, like getting to an appointment on time, right?
Right.
Can be an exceedingly difficult challenge for someone that does not have the advantage of having a vast member, network of family that could drop them off, a vehicle for transportation, multiple jobs they're trying to take care of, all those other things. And I think that, peeling those kind of curtains back for healthcare providers, especially, and sometimes patients and colleagues as well, is just so nice to be able to give some folks more grace, when we're
Mm-hmm.
working through
Right.
things. So I'm always looking forward to that. I'll put a link in it. I know you'd love it too. It's a really neat breakdown of just, what do we go through in society, and why is the healthcare system not always that helpful to bring us together and to allow us to receive care that we need and kind of want. And made me think of our podcast. And so there's lots of positives on that side.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that always makes you and I think of our podcast is whenever we think of patients that are in need of especially medications that they just can't get their hands on. And I think we're both always very thankful for Phil Baker and his team over at Remedy Chain to be able to help with some of those things. And we've interviewed other folks. There's different technologies out there to help as well. But I know that more folks learning about opportunities like this through Remedy Chain can really make a difference. So I'll play the video now.
At Remedy Chain, we know throwing away perfectly good medicine feels doubly wasteful. It's bad for the environment, and it could have been used to help a fellow human in need. So we found a remedy. Now you can donate your unused meds. Our pharmacists inspect and certify every donation so it can be safely and legally redistributed to vulnerable patients. Visit donatemymeds.org and click the Donate Meds button. Unopened, unexpired medication in original packaging is eligible for donation. Open bottles, controlled substances, and temperature-controlled meds are not eligible for donation. Once confirmed, we'll send a donation form to sign and prepaid shipping instructions. And we'll let you know once we've matched your donation with a patient in need. Together, we complete the chain. Remedy Chain. Visit donatemymeds.org today.
All right. Well, without further ado, I know we've got an action-packed episode, so I will bring our esteemed guest aboard.
Yes. So yes, and Kevin, talking about access and healthcare and trying to figure things out and navigate socioeconomics, if you will. I teach a lot of my U.S. healthcare, but I think another avenue that people might not necessarily always think about, but gosh, you're up against it when you have to, is thinking about senior living options. And
Yes.
today we have with us Laurie Cashman, who is, she currently serves as senior living advisor, assisting families in making informed decisions about senior living and care. Having served 12 years plus as executive director of a successful assisted living residence that still remains highly regarded in the community. Then she subsequently served as director of education for the industry's trade association, the Massachusetts Assisted Living Association,
Wow.
And then just having this deep understanding and appreciation for challenges associated with finding perfect senior living options for loved ones. So Laurie's also a faculty member in the Massachusetts Community College setting. She's been a professor of gerontology, psychology, sociology, human development, and human services at the college level for 25 years. Laurie is also a certified dementia practitioner and a certified end-of-life doula. So welcome, Laurie. We're so glad that you can be here with us today and really help us navigate how difficult it is to figure out where the next steps are for someone older in our lives that we just need help. And it's so hard, so hard to navigate this. I know I've been there, done that. And we all need people like you. So please share more with us about exactly what you're doing and some of this past experience that you've had that really has helped you be such an amazing advisor for people.
Well, thank you both, Donna and Kevin. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm delighted to be able to talk about this with you. This is a passion of mine. It has been for a long time. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to help people to work through the system and to find the perfect solutions for them and their loved ones. It is not an easy course to go through. It is can be very challenging emotionally, financially, physically, in every way that you can think of. And so my goal, like you, Donna, you mentioned how I was an executive director. It was for many years and I loved it. But my favorite part of it, in addition to developing the team, was to be able to provide a solution for people. Because people come to us when they're often at a crisis. And my hope is always that they will come to us before then, because it makes things like any situation. When you're dealing with it, making decisions in a crisis, it always makes it that much more difficult. But if you can do it, be a little bit more proactive, get the information ahead of time, and just slowly work through the process, and then go when you're ready and when you feel the time is right. That's always the best way. And as an executive director, I was on the receiving end of many crisis-filled moments with families. Like, what do we do? What do we do with mom? She can't stay alone. And it can be difficult. So the joy that I get from my position currently is in working with families to help them try to find their way through, so that they're not spinning their wheels, going down rabbit trails that aren't going to be productive for them, only to have mom or dad or a loved one go into a community that's not a good fit for them, having to move them again shortly thereafter. And every time someone moves like that, they kind of take a step back, especially if they're having some cognitive issues. So my goal is to find the right place at the right time, the first time, and get them in there and help them to enjoy a good quality of life in their later years, for however long they're going to be there.
Yeah. So Laurie, you mentioned that, that people are in crisis mode when this happens. And so I know I have been with my loved ones. What would be a good time for someone to really start looking at this so that they're not in crisis mode, I guess? Like, should you be exploring things years in advance or by a certain age of like, how do we go about doing this? And when do we all of a sudden think like, oh, I should probably start thinking about this for my loved ones, even though they don't need it right now?
I think we froze a little bit.
Oh.
No, I hear you, Donna. That Laurie really
a little bit of problem.
It's funny that Donna had that exact one I did written down over here to the right. Is you mentioned that you would rather individuals not come to you during crisis time, right? It's always better if we can go ahead of time. But knowing when that is a tough question to answer. When do you think the spurring moments can be, and how should you be approached, earlier to make those interventions happen and at least those plans laid out? We'll work on Laurie's timing on that side. But Donna, when we're loading Laurie back up on this side, I know with your personal experience and with patients over the years, when have you seen individuals that really did it right? You're like, these are examples of how we can go about this, and they really schedule things appropriately previously in your career.
Yeah. I have to say, I really haven't seen people do it right necessarily.
Yeah.
In the hospitals and all, it's always crisis mode. And when I see people who someone has fallen, for example, and then, and now they really can't go back home. They have to do like that short-term care, and then they still don't make it home, kind of thing.
Right.
So I find that people end up in crisis mode. You don't necessarily think about, especially the long-term care, if you need to place somebody. For assisted living, I
Mhm.
think, you might start to put some feelers out, know who someone has know like another family that has had to use assisted living, for example, and
Yep.
then work it through that way. So I think a lot of it is word of mouth. And what did you do? How'd you get through this? And sharing that with Laurie, being an advisor and being able to pair people. It's like getting people on the right medication, where
Sure.
you need to know exactly what's going on for that person, because they have so many comorbidities and other things going on. You need the right medication for them. It's the same thing for where someone's going to live. You need the right place for them. It's not that one place is going to be perfect for everybody. So I do think that is really
Well, I think that's super helpful. And same for me. It's usually always been the success stories are because of ripple effects. Someone in the family, has gone through something and it's, oh, wow, we need to start thinking about that. Or they've
yeah.
had a health scare, or, we used to do events at our church that talked about, hey, here's some planning components you can put in place. And so it allowed someone to kind of be scheduled and ready for the next steps in their assisted living journey. And so I think all of those things can be really helpful, but I'm looking forward to hearing what Laurie's sage advice is on that.
There we go. Okay.
Welcome back.
Sorry. Thank you. Well, you guys did great. I was enjoying listening to what you were saying. It's spot on.
So Laurie,
Oh,
do you
boy.
have a perfect time?
Oh my goodness. What is happening here tonight? I don't know.
That's okay. I think the technology gremlin sometimes, Laurie, will always grab a hold of us, but that's our job to navigate through
Can't
it.
hear you.
We can hear you now and see you now.
Yeah, so if you speak,
Oh, are we back?
sure.
We are.
Mhm.
And the beauty of this, Laurie, is even though it's live right now, we've got this incredible ability to edit everything. And so it'll be like it happened and you answered the question right away.
Oh, I don't think it's.
Oh, poor Laurie. Yeah, it's, one interesting thing, Donna, that I think is really meaningful here when it comes to some of the decisions being made for folks is technology can be such an interesting barrier, right? For so many of our seniors, when we're talking about how do you avoid assisted living care, right? How do you avoid it and how do you stay home and independent in the first place? A lot of times, a solid, I mean, not to make light of any situations, but a solid internet connection can be a major factor, of being able to live an independent lifestyle. A lot of the technology that you and I have talked about has been all based on internet connectivity. How can I connect to the internet? How can I utilize my devices? How can I become familiar with technology? And so I think that's a big piece for a lot of us. Have you had any wins, Donna, on your side when it's come to educating patients on being successful with implementing technology at maybe the 60, 70-year-old stage? So when they get to their 80s, 90s, they can utilize them effectively?
Yeah, so I know there's so many, every community has their senior centers, and they often do have computer training classes in those. So I think those can be super helpful for folks to get the training. There's also some individuals who will, like any other advisor or tutor or teacher, right? There's tutors that will go into someone's home and help them on their computer and teach them the computer. And what I think is really interesting, because I was talking to this particular gentleman, and I said, you must have the patience for people. I said, I think it's easy to get frustrated with your older parents when you're going, no, do this, do that. And he just has a very calm way about him. And he says, yes, I hear it all the time that they just can't work with the other, the family member kind of thing. It's like, when you have kids and they're, doing schoolwork or something like that, and you're trying to help with it and you just don't have that same wavelength. So I think that,
That
specialists in the field are good.
That patience is huge. I know that, in one of my former positions, I had a pharmacy technician that on her off time, Eva, I'm always shouting you out. So here's another shout out. She would go and she'd help members of her community to get a cell phone and be able to connect to the internet and get a service plan, everything else. And the one thing I thought was really special there, Donna, not only Eva's patience, which she also had for me, so that's extra special, but she had an incredible connection to the culture of the community that she was serving, specifically the Latino community in Washington State. And so a lot of those individuals, she could connect with, knowing what their needs are, why those needs are potentially there, and who in the family also needs to be involved for those decisions to be really successful. I'm really curious from Laurie's perspective, kind of what she's learned when it comes to that cultural connectivity of kind of moving someone from very familiar location of a home to assisted living and knowing how to do that effectively. Hey, Laurie, your thoughts on that one?
Oh, I think we're freezing again. Oh my goodness. All right. Can you hear me okay, Kevin?
You sound great, Laurie. Go right ahead.
We're having some trouble here.
We can hear you, Laurie.
Can you see us, hear us, Laurie?
I don't think she can.
I don't think she can.
So
we'll pull.
Yeah, okay. Down I don't know if I'm hearing you, but you're very just.
Oh, there she goes.
Poor Lord. That's okay. So back to the one thing I was wondering there, Donna, I think on the cultural connectivity piece, within some of those families, the one thing that Eva would often do is not only set them up with the plan, but also have the ability to know who are they going to be calling out to in case like emergency happened or other issues would occur. Yes. I think that independence component of being able to stay at home for as long as possible is something obviously the federal government is paying lots of attention to. We're trying to find ways to be able to keep people at home. We're putting in more preventative medicine kind of standpoints to be able to make that happen for folks. The one thing that you and I both know is missing, though, Donna, to be able to keep people at home or even staying in assisted living versus going to skilled nursing is this. Medication management, like it is a big black hole, Donna, overall for a lot of us, stay independent and to stay in assisted living facilities and not matriculate into more expensive levels of care. What are you seeing, Donna, of late? I know that, we're both trying to do lots of advocacy work on that side of things. Right. What's the latest for our audience to be able to hear about in that space?
So I think what's important is I think a lot of people will go into assisted living because there are issues with medications for the patient. So they're not able to manage it so well and having to have that assistance. I think what a lot of people don't realize is that it tends to be an extra fee, and there are some kind of medications that are not going to be administered. For example, like insulin or some injections, they won't be administered. The person has to have the ability to actually take the medication or use the medication that they are going to be needing. So if there is some issues with that, that can be problematic. And then, like I said, there's typically a fee associated with that as well. So, so with that stated, it makes it difficult for families to think they're going to be all set. Like they're in the assisted living, they're going to be all set. Right. And it doesn't always happen that way. If people are pretty independent still, and they just need more help with like cooking or, maybe some socialization, things like that, it can be a great environment for them to be in because there's activities and other things like that going on. But with the medications, you do need to be careful. The other thing too is that, as we know, the med list, we talk a lot about people being over medicated, and that over medication could be causing someone to lose their mobility abilities, cause some issues with cognition. So when we're looking at these issues, is it the medicine or is it really someone's comorbidities and their trajectory for health? So can we do something before someone moves to maybe see if their medications could be adjusted so that they can feel better, they can stay in place, they can be able to exercise and move and think more clearly because medications have been optimized for them.
I love that, Donna. And I think, the other thing that I was wondering from Laurie is this, because in New York, there's the health home system. In a lot of places, there's a visiting nurses transitional care kind of component. I'm wondering how that coordination goes between folks like Laurie that are trying to connect the dots for individuals going into assisted living and the other kind of at-home options that are there for kind of intermediaries, or let's say step therapy, so to speak.
Yeah.
Thankfully, we have Laurie back to be able to tell us more about it.
Oh gosh, I hope it stays. So sometimes that's the tricky part, really trying to work with people to get a good sense of what their needs are and to try to fit them with the proper community where they're not going to run into challenges like that. There are communities that will provide advanced services. They have like an enhanced certificate to be able to offer certain services that some other communities might not be able to offer. And it's important that we make the right fit. And there are some communities also, even independent living, that will, I think we're having trouble again, that will allow people and be able to provide services under a contractual basis. And it will enable people to get the services that aren't actually directly provided by the assisted living community itself.
Beautiful.
So are you able to hear me?
Well, the one thing, Laurie, that I'm going to do on my side, Donna, you can do on yours as well. I'm going to stop my camera.
Okay.
And then that should allow Laurie a little bit more bandwidth so then she can be able to proceed with just audio. Can you still hear us well, Laurie?
I can, yes.
Okay, great. Now I'll leave my
that seems good.
Hopefully that makes it easier for your internet connection to stay through. That makes a lot of sense when you're trying to pair things, Laurie, with what you want to do with these individuals. I'm curious. Let me do this. I'm curious when it comes to pairing an individual with the right facility. What do you have in the background, Laurie? Like, do you have a checklist of here's all the criteria or the factors that someone may be asking about or they may need to know about an individual facility, and you have them fill out a survey to do some matching and linking? How does it work to be able to pair them appropriately?
I work with them directly. It's through conversation, through an understanding of what their pain points are right now, and really what they're dealing with, what are their biggest challenges, what they're struggling with in terms of keeping this person safe and living a good quality of life at home, and what the challenges are with that, and what they're going to need to have in place so that that's not a concern when they get to the assisted living community. So I work with them to have all of the challenges addressed beforehand, and then I look through all of the communities that are available for assisted living in a certain geographic area that the person's looking for, and see what services they provide. And if those, like for example, there were some communities that can actually provide a 2-person assist. It's not a common thing, but there are some that can. So it's my job to try to find that community in that geographic area, whether it be in New England, the place where I'm most familiar, or whether it be in Ohio or Kentucky or Illinois, where we're working. We have services in all those areas as well. So I'm learning more and more about those areas, but I'm most familiar with New England. I'm kind of the boots on the ground person in New England, but I cover those other states as well. So as I learn more and more about the communities, that process becomes faster for people. But my goal is to make sure that people get the right place to be able to rest and just really have a relationship with mom or dad again. That's not about caregiving. That's just about being a daughter or being mother and father, whatever and to be able to restore that relationship so that they don't have to worry about who's going to shovel mom's icy walkway or who's going to get dad's groceries in. It's just, there's just so much that has to be done from a practical standpoint that takes away from the relationship. And if we can fill in all of those challenges, then they can get back that relationship again, where it's just focused on the two people that love each other and can just support each other through life.
I'm so glad you highlighted that, Laurie. And Donna, if you don't mind, if I double click on it, is this that relationship, the level of loneliness that we deal with right now, Laurie, in our society, especially amongst seniors, is a significant issue, a health issue and a societal issue. And sometimes we see the exact same thing transpire inside of the assisted living facility, where you have an individual that now is in assisted living or is in skilled nursing, and the family is now somewhat detached. It's almost like now mom or dad or aunt or uncle, whoever live in this community, and we just go see them every once in a while, but they don't need us as much, right? Now they're being taken care of. How do you balance that, Laurie? I mean, because the psychological advantages of having family involved are significant and well studied, right? And so you being able to help navigate those families into a state where just because mom or dad is in the assisted living and you don't have to shovel their snow doesn't mean they still don't want to see your face and be within your presence for them, both socially, psychologically, and for their medical well-being. Your thoughts?
You can often get a sense, working with the families, working with the individuals, what their relationship is like. And for most people, the families are very involved, very supportive. For some people, there's some strain in the relationship. And I can't make people feel guilty for not wanting to visit mom or dad more, or for mom or dad to not want them to come visit more because the grandkids come and they're noisy and things like that. It's not always a smooth, easy relationship. So I think you have to meet them where they are and support the relationship where it is, and encourage the family members to come and be part of the community that their loved one has moved into. And maybe those other relationships can be restored better when the pressures of caregiving are removed or lessened.
Awesome.
So, Laurie, what are some of the key points? Like if you had to share, say, maybe like 3 to 5 points that is really important that families ask, or that, just people who have not navigated this before, what would be your top 3 to 5 items that would be most helpful for people to ask and to know?
For most people, the starting point is budget. So they're looking for what will the cost be? And it can be significant. I mean, but although assisted living is typically about half the cost of skilled nursing. And it's important for people to know that there is a huge difference between assisted living and skilled nursing. But I think that's really where most people start. I think the second place that people are pretty much using as a guide is geographic location. Many times they want it to be within close proximity of family members so that they can visit easily, so they don't have to travel a long distance in order to be able to go visit. Another factor is service. What service is being provided? If someone is on oxygen, will they have assistance in being able to support them as they receive oxygen, however often they need it? Will they have services that will enable the person to access assistance with activities of daily living as necessary, as often as necessary? The interesting thing about assisted living is at the current point in time, only 66% of people in assisted living are currently receiving assistance with activities of daily living. That means 34% of the people in assisted living are not even having help with bathing, dressing, toileting, things like that. Many of them are there for socialization, for opportunities to be able to have neighbors and people around, and to have their meals prepared for them, have some housekeeping done, and to conserve their energy and preserve it so that they can do the things they enjoy and spend life doing the things that bring meaning to them. Another consideration is what type of assistance do they offer with medication? Sometimes communities will charge an additional fee. Most often they will charge an additional fee for self-administered medication or limited medical assistance. And self-administered medication, although it's kind of sounds like a misnomer, it's basically people that will observe when the resident will take the medication, and they document that they've observed it. The limited medical assistance is really there's more of a hands-on, more of a assistance with administering the medication, and it's important if the person who's going to be living in the community needs more assistance with medication, it's important that they find out if that community provides that type of assistance. Another consideration is transportation. Will people have transportation available to go to medical appointments, to go shopping, or to go on outings? Is that something that the families are going to have to support with if the transportation is not available? Another consideration is what will happen to mom or dad if they decline physically or cognitively. Are there resources in place to be able to add additional services, or are they going to have to move? Will they have assistance in moving? Will they have assistance in trying to find another place to live that's appropriate for them, that can better meet their needs and keep them safe? Another factor to consider is what will happen if their resources run out, if they've spent their money, and where do they go? What is the plan that they would have in place in order for them to be able to either stay there or find themselves in a situation where they can have more support from a financial standpoint. So those are pretty basic.
Mhm.
I would say those are the ones that you really need to look at first when looking for assisted living.
Yeah. So, and then when you are thinking about all of these other things, what about some of the other like healthcare proxies and medical directives and things such as that? Is that something that you make certain are in place for people too? Is that part of your advising, if you will?
Yes. Yes. In my role, I would make sure that people have that in place. If they don't have it in place, I would assist them in getting resources to help them to draft those documents. Most assisted living communities expect that people will come in with those documents in place. And they usually request a copy of them. They have it on file, because the last thing you want is for an ambulance to be called and have the person administered to improperly in ways that they would prefer not. So it's important that everything be upfront and everyone have a clear understanding of what the expectations are.
Right. So such an important conversation to have really ahead of time with your family members or whoever it might be that you're caring for. So earlier on we're trying to learn a little bit more about, you had mentioned, there's this crisis mode that people get into. When is a good time to really start researching this so you're not in crisis mode?
If you're thinking about assisted living, now, that's the time. Don't wait. And I know as an executive director, I would say probably 90% of the people who moved into the community where I was, either they or their families would say, I wish I hadn't waited so long. It is a wonderful quality of life for people who are appropriate for that setting. And many times people delay and they don't want to leave their home. They don't want to give up their independence. And that's the beauty of assisted living. Part of the philosophy of assisted living is that the preference is to have the person be able to make as many independent decisions as possible, as close to what it was in their previous living arrangement.
Yes.
And to be able to just have the supportive services come in just to enhance and allow them to be able to stay as independent as possible. And for example, if someone comes in and they say, well, I really want to do my own laundry. And if they're able, I would say, you know what, do it. Even though the laundry services are included in the monthly rental or the monthly fee, people perform better when the environmental press is just a little bit above what they're comfortable doing. So if they have to push themselves just a little bit to get their laundry done, I would encourage them to do that. That gives people a sense of purpose. It helps them to feel more sense of control over their own lives and their own environment. If they really need the help, then obviously it's there, and you would encourage them to take advantage of that. But if they're able to do it, I encourage people to do as much as they can on their own.
Yeah.
I've got a question for both of you. Are you planning to go into assisted living, Donna or Laurie?
Oh, that is a very interesting question.
I'm offended you're asking. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Are you trying to keep us out of crisis mode, Kevin?
I always think that it's so interesting that we sometimes shoot out some hyperbole that comes to when you're thinking about assisted living, then that time is now, which I think is great and it makes a lot of sense. It's just, when does that actually arise? And so for 3 individuals that are relatively healthy, I have not thought about assisted living. I've thought about family members potentially needing assisted living or needing some other means of care, and looked into opportunities within the area. Those conversations, right now, it's funny, Donna, you mentioned that. I'm offended by you saying, talking about assisted living, because I think it's very appropriate. If you bring it up to a family member, they may think to you, oh, wow, do you think I'm incapable, or that I no longer have the ability to care for myself or live a full life? And so how do you handle that right there, Laurie? I mean, and I'd love for you to answer the question of, are you thinking about assisted living? And then the next piece of, how do you handle the conversation when it's not the individual going to assisted living, but it's the family that's recognizing the potential need?
So, I've been in those situations. Well, first of all, I'll answer the first question you asked. I have not thought about it much for myself. I think about it on occasion, and I think that's for further down the road, but everybody feels that way. No matter, I'll think that when I'm 70, 80, whatever, if I live that long, I'll be thinking, well, when it's time, I'll think about it.
Exactly.
But it's easier to tell other people think about it now. So I will admit that. But, you know, I think given the right community, given the right setting and the right circumstances, I think I would consider it for myself. Although like I said, I have not really considered much right now. But, you know, there are some communities that will actually, where long-term care insurance will cover some of the cost, if not all of the cost of assisted living. So, you know, people get long-term care well before they need it, long-term care insurance, I should say, before they need it. So now's the time to start thinking, if you're considering long-term care insurance, even to go into assisted living, it might be a worthwhile expense.
Wow.
But you know, when there are some people who they move into assisted living not because they want to, but because they feel the pressure from family. And there was one gentleman. I remember he came into the community. It was move-in day, and his son came in, and he came in behind his son with his little overnight bag. And he said, and he put the bag down, and he said, "That's it. Next stop, Shady Rest Cemetery." And I said, I said, "Jim, you got a lot of living to do. You are going to have a fun time here. We have a blast. We sing and dance and gamble, and there is entertainment, and there's all kinds of stuff." And before long, he had a lady friend, and he was walking her to her apartment in the evening after movie night, and they were taking walks out back, and he was living his best life, and he just never expected that. And I try to encourage people to come give it a try. There are some communities that will allow people to have like a try us arrangement. And, you know, the good thing about assisted living, I've found most, if not all communities, they, although you sign a year lease, you typically just have to give a 30-day notice. And so if it doesn't work out, you can give your notice and move out, you know, at the end of next month. And, or you're on the hook for paying rent through the end of next month. And so that gives people a little bit of flexibility and freedom, just knowing that that's an option for them, that they don't have to stay. And I think that's what I've found also. Many of the times people they want to know that they have options. And there was this one lady that moved in, Ruth, and she was a great cook, she was always cooking for her family. And when she was first moving in, she was a little bit reluctant. And she said, "Will I still be able to cook if I come here?" And, you know, I said, "Ruth, you don't have a cooktop in your apartment, but there's the country kitchen right outside your apartment. And you can go in there and make burgers and soup and do all the things that you normally like to do. And you're welcome to use that anytime." So about a month after she moved in, she came to my office. That she was at the front desk and she asked to see me. She came in, she handed me all of her recipe cards. I said, "What are you doing?" They said, "You're not going to cook anymore?" She said, "No, you know what? I was just happy to know that I could. But now," that she said, "I'm going to turn the recipes over to the executive chef. If he needs help learning how to make my lentil soup, I'll show him how to do it because I like the way I do it. I'm not interested in doing it anymore." But she just, many times people just want to know that they still can, that if it's something they want to do, that they'll be able to do it.
Yeah, for sure. So Kevin, I did that very reflexive thing, like you said, and I was like, "Oh, I'm offended." But my whole thought is with assisted living, I told my kids, just put me on a cruise ship, and they have the health. Just put me on a cruise ship and let me sail the seas and view all these wonderful ports and everything else. And that's my idea of assisted living.
That may be the secret right there.
I like that a lot. I think that's fantastic. And
all right, I'll join you.
Sounds great.
Series and the cruise. Well, I don't know what the name of it was, but it sure sounded like not the kind of cruise that I would want for any respite whatsoever. I'm sure there's a lot of more comforting, relaxing stops to go. Speaking of, I think, comforting and relaxing, that's something else that I'd love for you to educate us on, Laurie. Sometimes comfort and relaxing sounds fantastic and is the worst thing for our bodies, is the worst thing for long-term longevity, is the worst thing for us to be successful in later years. That piece right there of getting family members, and it's funny, I don't know how many people I've talked to just of late that they've said something along these same lines, that mom or dad are getting in that phase where they don't want to do anything. And it's interesting how frequent that ends up happening. And there's a multitude of factors that kind of leans into that. When you've had a resident come in, or even talking to them prior to, kind of signing up, and the ability to go from being very inactive potentially to finding some things to love, to enjoy, and to really relish for the remainder of their life or this next stage of their lives. How have you gone about that to see some more success? And honestly, this is totally selfish, Laurie, because I'm going to use this inside assisted living, and Don are going to use it outside because we've got to motivate folks.
So I think what it really comes down to, and even through the whole process, is just knowing the people, knowing them, knowing what has made them happy in the past, the things that has brought them, the things that have brought them joy in the past. Do they like to watch the Red Sox? Do they like to bowl? Do they like to paint? Do they like to play cards? Just having an idea of what has brought them fulfillment and joy in the past. And they may have kind of gotten out of that because they've lost friends, they've lost the ability to get out and do those things. But when they get into the assisted living setting, there are all activity programs that are set up just for people to just get them out of their apartments and to just get them engaged. And the activities professionals are usually pretty good at prompting people to say, come on, we're going to have some Irish music down here this afternoon. And we know how much you love your Irish music, and they're going to serve green beer, and it's St. Patrick's Day weekend, and come on down. And, and just usually they try to work on something that they know has been meaningful to the people in the past. And that usually is pretty effective in getting them out. And once they get out once or twice, they see that it's really a lot of fun, and it helps them to sleep better. It just makes life better. And there are opportunities for all of that, even when there's a blizzard going on outside. If you lived at home alone in your own home and there was a blizzard outside, no one's coming and you're not going anywhere. But when you're in assisted living, you have the opportunity to engage with people and to enjoy the things that life has to offer, regardless of the weather. And someone's still going to be cooking your dinner.
Yep, for sure.
I love that. I love it. I know that I know we got interrupted because technology can be so cruel to us sometimes.
Oh, yes.
We're definitely going to have you back, because I know Don and I both have 1,000 more questions, and I'm sure our audience will actually send us a ton of questions on this that they'll wish we were able to ask during it. But for the audience, if you are able to give them a few words of wisdom, or a few highlight points to let them know what they kind of need to consider, both clinicians and patients, when it comes to assisted living planning, please let us know.
So it's important to recognize assisted living is not skilled nursing. Assisted living, it focuses on just making the most of every moment and to be able to be as independent as possible. It's not about just trying to sustain life. It's about bringing meaning to life. It's about bringing life to their years. And it's such a wonderful opportunity. And many times healthcare professionals are not really familiar with the difference between skilled nursing and assisted living. They're reluctant to encourage people to go to assisted living because they think it's more like a skilled nursing community. And they say, oh, you're not ready for that. Everyone's ready for that. Like I said, only 34% of the people that are in assisted living communities, only 66% receive real assistance with activities of daily living, and a full 34% do not. So it's all about quality of life. It's about freedom, independence, making the most of their time, and opportunities to make new friends and to have a good quality of life, and just enjoy what life has to offer, even in the later years.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Well, that is wonderful. Thank you so much, Laurie, for your time. We really appreciate you, and thankful for all the audience that listed in. Lots of good questions, really related to things that Laurie touched on, is just moving away so far and being connected with family. Like how are we navigating those things in the US? And I think that trying to find someone to pair you up, not only geographically, but also with all the other needs, that you may have as a family, to be able to connect those pieces together. It is a huge piece of folks like Laurie's job to be able to help society. The other one is, I think, the big push that Laurie is saying to get a hold of this information early, process it early, and be able to look at it, even if you don't feel like assisted living is along the way. I think it's a real opportunity to be able to get amongst a group of individuals in a similar life stage to really talk through those kinds of things. So I'm excited to see what kind of happens in your space, Laurie. I'm really excited to have you back, and everybody that was stayed tuned and listened through. Thank you guys all for joining, and have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Laurie.
Thank you.